All right, this is take one of I don't know how to film doing anything with my phone. So we're going to attempt to clone some grapes. Want to point out a couple things that I am using. I'm using this spiffy harder tray with these chambers that are a lot different than we've used before. Um, this was recommended to me. It is sturdier. I don't think the plugs are going to fit as well, but I think this will last a lot longer. The tray material itself is heavier, plus the insert part is a lot sturdier. So I'm gonna try that. I don't think it's a big deal one way or the other. Um, I've already put water in the tray. I've also added this Clonex cloning solution. You don't need it if you're using the gel. I would use this normally with cloners that spray water or whatever. But I've busted the lid on it and I need to use it up, so what the heck? Put it in. It won't hurt anything. Um, so cut a bunch of grapevines, just the tips off, and it's not really the right season to try cloning because these plants are already fruiting. But this is just for learning. So anyway, to get started, put your water in the tray. Um, Make sure the water's high enough that you can actually put a plug in and have the plug get wet. And I've got some tools. Let me move the solution out of the way. I've got some tools. I don't plan on using them all. These are, I'm using them for mushrooms, etc. And because I'm using them, I do have an alcohol bottle. If for the first time use of your scalpel, I don't think you need to do this, but maybe wash the scalpel off to get any oil off. But I'm just gonna squirt some alcohol on this stuff. Um, so I cut these vines off with my knife, with my pocket knife, and they're going to need a little bit of tending. I've got to trim them down anyway, but this is where you're going to want to use your scalpel to trim the ends and stuff. But I'm going to pause this right now and start a new section because I don't know how big I can make these videos. So I'll be right back. And I'm back. All right, so let's get ready. Let me move some stuff around. Um, I've got my cloning gel. We're going to be using that here pretty soon, but right now I'm going to focus on getting these grapes ready. I've got them in this huge measuring cup, but I'm going to pull them out. When you trim, when you make your cuttings, definitely have some container with water nearby to drop them into to keep the cut ends wet. But for just a little bit, we're going to be okay. All right. So let's start with this piece. So we want to cut under nodes, and I don't know what side right, side up is for you, but I'm going to count the top leaf, the very end, as up, okay? So there's a node there, there's a node there, there's a node there, etc., right under these leaves. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut under the third or the fourth node. So I'm going to use scissors to do this because then we can show what we need to do after using scissors. So there's the snip. There's actually enough on this, the leftover, that I could probably try to do another cloning, but I'm not going to. I've got enough as it is, and chances are poor with both ends being cut that this could siphon up water and do what it needs to do. It might work, probably would work, but I'm not going to waste effort on it, so that's going to the trash. So here we are back at this plant. First thing we're going to do is trim off the big leaves. It's going to be sucking up nutrients for the first little bit from the cloning gel, and I've got cloning solution, and these leaves will require energy to run, and we just have this little bitty sprig, so that leaf at the top should be more than enough. All right, so this is not a scalpel. This would probably work fine for most everything, but hopefully you're using a scalpel. For this, I'm not going to worry. So here we go. Actually, I'm going to prep the Clonex. If you're using one of these bottles and you're going to be using it over and over, don't dip plants directly into it. Pour it out. Gotta forget, I almost forgot my Vanna White presentation. So I'm going to stab this with my scissors, maybe, if I can do it without cutting myself to get it open. Now these scissors were in alcohol, so I'm not too worried about any kind of contamination there. I'm just going to take this. I got this for less than $2 at Walmart. You could use a shot glass or anything else. It's been sterilized with alcohol. You could just wash it with dishwashing soap. So this stuff is it's pretty goopy. So if you look, it's kind of it's thicker than cough syrup. That's so what we're going to do is we're going to dip these ends once they're prepared into that. I also need to get some plugs ready. I was not able to get rapid router plugs, and I really like to stick with what works, but that's okay. We're going to make do. So here we have some plugs. I don't mind setting them on this table because I'd wiped it down earlier with alcohol. Okay. So I'm going to take this stem. Hopefully getting close won't do too much. And I'm just going to try to get kind of a 45-degree angle there. And I'm sure that's not focusing, but that's what I've tried to do. Now I'm going to take the blade. Let's see, what's the right angle? This should work. And I'm just going to scrape the outside, and the angle is not cutting. It's very much a scrape. So I'm dragging the blade like this, and I'm just getting some of that outside skin off. So take that end into the goop, into the plug, maybe, and this is off camera, but the plug is going into the tray. So now let's speed it up a little bit. 1, 2, 3. Cutting under the node, trying to get a 45-degree angle. Let's snip off some branches. And the vines. So if you've got a really big leaf at the top or whatever, it doesn't hurt even to just keep the leaf, but cut it down. I'm forgetting to be in front of the camera. So here I am trimming this leaf down like so. It probably would have been fine to trim it all the way off, but just wanted to give you an example. So, whoops, I forgot to scrape. So we've done the 45-degree cut. Going to just scrape around the edges. And I don't know if you can see, but I'm getting some of those strings. That's what I want to see, just a little bit. Dip it in the goop. Throw it in the plug. Voila. I'll just do a few more. So I count my nodes, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna cut so that doesn't drop in the way. So there we have several nodes. Trim off excess leaves and vines, etc. And there we go. I'm going to leave that leaf on because I like it. Oops. Now I'm going to get my 45-degree cut below the node. Try not to cut my finger off. Now I'm going to dip it. Had a vine fall in the dip, but we're going to dip it. Put it in the block or the plug. So I left those little side branches and shoved them in. Now they're going to hold that in place, just kind of like the barbs on an arrowhead. All right. So really quick, I've got, I could count this one, but I'm not going to. 1, 2, 3. I've trimmed off the bottom, trimming off leaves now, leaves, etc. Okay, that's where we're at. My 45-degree cut below the node without cutting my finger off. And I didn't quite do a great job there. I'm really not worried about that. In fact, that little stringy bit might help me for all I know. So I'm going to scrape. And the scraping is going to let that cloning hormone hit the plant cells, and it encourages the plant to grow roots there, even if I didn't have the cloning gel. The cloning gel does a couple things. It's got, I believe, enzymes and good stuff in it that encourages roots, but it also protects against disease. It's kind of a blocker. You'll hear people talk about using honey to do this. The honey doesn't really encourage growth, but it inhibits bacteria getting in there. So 1, 2, 3, cut. Now I'm down to this, cutting off leaves and vines. .45 below the node. Oof. Well, that did not work out well. It's okay. Got a lot of extra string there on both sides, but back in the glop. Ooh. And there we go. Hopefully this part of the video wasn't too long, which is what I'm about to find out. All right, here we are again. Let me move some stuff around so you can see. I have 6 plugs going with grapes. I'm not sure if I explained earlier, but the reason why I cut with a knife after cutting with the scissors is the scissors cut, but they also crush a little bit. And I want to make sure I have a good end. So that's why I come back with the scalpel or the box cutter or whatever you want to call it and do that trim again and then scrape. So it's time to put the hood on. I'm going to leave the vents on it shut for the first 2 or 3 days. And these grapes look a little droopy now, but they're going to get a lot worse. And I'll look for them to pick up a little bit. And I'll see condensation everywhere on the inside of the hood before I open these up to let a little gas exchange happen. Let some of that stale air, CO2, get out, and swap for oxygen, and also let more CO2 in case there isn't enough. So the thing is the leaves put off CO2, and the roots take in oxygen. So it isn't just one thing that they need, but they do need fresh air. So, but we don't want to give it to them until they've had a chance to get going and fight off anything that might infect them. So here goes the hood. And I'm done. That's all there is to it.